What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my full preview and prediction on the college football playoff semifinal matchup between the number 8 seeded Ohio State Buckeyes and the number 5 seeded Texas Longhorns. We did my Notre Dame versus Penn State video from yesterday, the first playoff semifinal matchup in the Orange Bowl. If you have not seen that video, be sure to go back and check it out right here on the channel. Now we're doing the other playoff semifinal game, Ohio State versus Texas. This is going to be a really big-time playoff semifinal matchup, and it's going to be taking place at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. So let's go ahead and jump right into my playoff prediction here, my playoff semifinal prediction here for Ohio State and Texas. We're going to take a look at stats, though, for both of these teams, and then I'll give you my official prediction of how I think the game is going to go down. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll start with stats here for both of these teams, and we'll start with Ohio State. So first off, for Ohio State, the Buckeyes in points per game, this team averaging 36.4 points per game. And you look at this offense in the last couple of games, that number has definitely gotten a lot better. They have scored a total of 42 and 41 in their last two games in the playoff. Yeah, that number has really gone up for the Buckeyes. This is an offense that can really score, and it looks like it's going back to where it used to be from a couple years ago when C.J. Stroud was here at quarterback. In total yards per game, though, on the offensive side of the football, Ohio State averages 432.5 yards of total offense. And like I said, that number has really gone up in the last couple of games. Again, they have been scoring, 42 and 41 points in their last two games. So that probably will equal about 80-plus points, to be honest, for Ohio State. And Chip Kelly has this offense, at a really good passing attack team instead of like a rushing attack team. You look at the passing yards per game, 263.4 yards of passing per game. Will Howard, of course, has been a lot better in the last couple of games. We've seen Will Howard throw the football a lot more in the last couple of games compared to where Ohio State was in the early part of the regular season, and especially in that loss to Michigan. Ohio State's definitely more of a passing attack offense than more of a running attack offense. I think both of these teams are more of a passing attack offense instead of running the football, which I'll talk about here in just a second for Texas. Rushing yards per game, though, it's about average for Ohio State, 169.1 yards of rushing yards per game. You got a good, really good running back duo, though, in the backfield with Quayshawn Judkins. Of course, came on as a transfer from Ole Miss. Played pretty well down there for the last 2 years. He hasn't been one of the best running backs in the country, but Travion Henderson also can provide a spark here on the offensive side of the football for rushing the football for the Buckeyes. So again, an interesting duo back there in running the football here for the Buckeyes, but again, about average at running the football at best, 169.1 yards of rushing per game on the ground. Then on defense, though, this is really a really good defense of Ohio State. In the secondary and passing yards allowed, they're only giving up 152.4 yards of passing. And you look at Ohio State in the rankings in the country, they have the top secondary in the country. So yeah, passing yards allowed per game, that's not really much at all. 152.4 yards of passing given up in the secondary for the Buckeyes. In rushing yards allowed per game, this team also can stop the run game pretty well. They don't really have one of the top defensive lines in the country, but I think they're actually top 5 in stopping the run. They're only giving up a 92.2 yards of rushing allowed per game. So both sides of the football, the offense starting to click on. This looks like a very dangerous team on both sides of the football. Offensively in the rankings, 27th on offense, but again, this offense has really increased in the last couple of games, and then defensively, they have one of the top defenses in the country. No surprise there, according to the defensive numbers. So that's the stats there for Ohio State. Let's now move on to the Texas Longhorns' stats for 2024 in points per game. Texas is averaging 34.3 points per game, so a little bit lesser than Ohio State, but really close. Both of these teams can score on the offensive side of the football. In total yards per game on offense, this team is averaging 443.9 yards of total offense. So yeah, both offenses I think are pretty even. It's pretty close margin there in total yards per game and passing yards per game. 278.5 yards of passing. Both teams like to really pass the football a bunch. Quinn Ewers, of course, and Will Howard have a ton of experience at the quarterback position. And their rushing yards per game, also about average there for Texas, 165.5 yards of rushing on the ground. So yeah, both teams don't really run the football that much. They're just about average at both at running the football, but passing yards, they like to pass the football a lot. Then on defense, though, passing yards allowed per game, 166.1 yards of passing allowed for Texas. That's also a pretty good number. Both of these teams in the secondary are pretty good at stopping the passing game, and then also both teams can really stop the running game as well. 111.8 yards of rushing allowed per game given up for Texas on the defensive line. Then on offense and defense in the rankings for Texas, just a little bit better than Ohio State on the offense, 17th on offense. And then defensively, they're third on defense. So both teams ranked in the top 5 on the defensive side of the football. That's the stats there for both of these teams. Let's now move on to the full preview of this game. This game will be held on January the 10th, this Friday, so it's right after that first semifinal game. Again, I wish both semifinal games were held on the same day. This one will be at 7:30 Eastern Time, so just like the first game, it will be held at 7:30 on ESPN. Ohio State favored by 6, and the over and under at 53.5. So you look at the FBI as well. The FBI does favor Texas by a close percentage, 50.9%, I believe it was. And then for Ohio State, it was at 49.4. So you can see how even this matchup is. But Ohio State favored by 6. That is a very high spread there in my opinion. But I mean, it doesn't really surprise me just the way Ohio State's been playing the last couple games. Ohio State on offense has been very explosive. Will Howard has played a lot more better compared to where he was in the regular season. And then for Texas, we've seen them up and down in so many big games this year, especially the SEC championship, and then coming off that couple overtime win against Arizona State, 39-31. Yeah, that was a really close game. But I think both of these teams are on a pretty good run. But Ohio State's definitely one of the hottest teams right now in the country, definitely in the start of this playoff era, in the 12-team playoff era as well. Again, this game will be held at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, so it's at Arlington, Texas, so there might be a little bit more Texas fans there as well, but I think Ohio State fans will definitely show up. There's no question about it. The way they've been playing the last couple games, Ohio State will definitely be ready to go. I think this has a chance to be one of the best playoff games of the 12-team playoff era. I know we've had some blowouts, of course, but I think both of these teams are just so pretty even. The talent on both of these rosters is also pretty even. The coaching staff is also pretty even, but when you look at the stats there for the defense, I mean, defensively, both teams are just so pretty even. They're both ranked in the top 5 on defense, so that is what I think the full preview looks like here. Again, this game will be held on Friday, January the 10th, the second semifinal game at 7:30 on ESPN. Ohio State favored by 6, and the over and under at 53.5. So this game could probably go 2 different ways. It could be a high-scoring game, just depending on how Ohio State's been the last couple of games, or it could be a low-scoring defensive battle just based off of both defensive teams' rankings. All right, let's now move on here to the previous game comparisons for both teams, starting with Ohio State. They come in with a record of 12-2, so a couple of losses. Remember, their other loss came to Oregon in the regular season. First off, they defeated Northwestern here on the road 31-7 back on November the 16th. Again, this is going back to the regular season for the last 3 games. Indiana, they blew them out 38-15. Of course, that was kind of a big game there. Indiana was undefeated, and Ohio State gave them their first loss of the season. Indiana is now out of the playoff, but they defeated them 38-15 on November 23rd. Lost to Michigan, of course. That was the big loss there for Ohio State here in rivalry weekend. Lost to Michigan for the 4th consecutive year in a row, 13-10 on November 30th. But you look at their first 2 playoff games, both of them have been big wins. Defeated Tennessee 42-17 back on December the 21st. Of course, that was a home game there on campus for the Buckeyes. And then in the Rose Bowl, they defeated Oregon in the quarterfinals in the rematch 41-21. So again, you look at the last couple games for Ohio State, they've both been pretty big wins. Tennessee was a blowout. Oregon was a 20-point win. I wouldn't really say that was a blowout. It was a 20-point win, but Ohio State's just been so dominant in the last couple of games, especially here in this postseason. Then you look at Texas, they come in with a record of 13-2. First off, defeated Kentucky 31-14 on November 23rd. Defeated rival Texas A&M in rivalry weekend 17-7 on November 30th. And then in their first SEC championship as an SEC team, they lost to Georgia by a close one, 22-19 in overtime. And then after that, they got into the playoff games. They defeated Clemson in their first round game on campus 38-24. On December the 21st, if you look at the first half of that game, it was kind of, a dominant performance by Texas, and then Clemson kind of, came out in the second half and made it a little bit closer, but Texas definitely kind of pulled away there late in this one, so they defeated Clemson 38-24, and then just this past weekend they defeated defeated Arizona State on January the 1st on New Year's Day, 39-31 in double overtime. Of course, Texas got the 2-point conversion, and then of course their defense made a big-time turnover stop, and Texas of course survived this game. So that's a look at the previous games for both of these teams. It's now time to get into my official prediction here on this playoff semifinal matchup. Again, it's Ohio State versus Texas, the number 8 versus number 5 seeded matchup, the Big Ten versus the SEC, of course. I'm excited for this one. This is one of the toughest predictions I've ever had to make. Ohio State and Texas are two very talented teams, especially on the defensive side of the football. And like I said, this game can definitely go either way. It could go a different direction on both sides. It could be a high-scoring game between two really good offensive teams, or it could be a low-scoring defensive battle like both defensive teams are both ranked in the top 5. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think it could be a low-scoring defensive battle. I don't think Ohio State's going to put up 40 points in this one, but when I just look at this Ohio State team, the way they've been playing in the last couple games, and their receivers have been really stepping up. Will Howard, of course, throwing the football a lot more. I think that's going to be a tough time for Texas to stop. And don't get me wrong, Texas has a pretty good defensive line, but I don't really expect Ohio State to run the football in this game a bunch, and same thing probably for Texas. You got two very, very, very good quarterbacks and veteran quarterbacks as well. I don't think Ohio State wins this one by 6, but I think it will be a close game. It does come down to the wire. It probably comes down to whoever forces a turnover at the end of the game, and I think that team is going to be Texas. Let's say that Texas has the football with about 2 minutes remaining, and then Ohio State gets the football. They turn it over either on a fumble or interception, and Ohio State gets the win. I think they win this one 27-24. Again, I think it's going to come down to a one-possession game. I don't really expect the Buckeyes to cover that spread at 6 and go over the 6-point spread as well. So yeah, this will be a competitive game. It will be a low-scoring defensive battle. It will be a close game that comes down to the wire. Again, I had a really tough time on this one, but I got to go with the Buckeyes just because of how they've been playing in the last couple of games. Again, they beat Oregon 41-21 and then Tennessee 42-17. If Ohio State passes the football a lot more, that's going to be tough for the Texas defense to stop Will Howard, and then also go to your go-to receivers for the Buckeyes, especially Jeremiah Smith. I think that's going to be tough for Texas to stop. So I do like Ohio State's offense a little bit better than Texas. I mean, it's down to like Chip Kelly versus like Steve Sarkisian's offenses and everything. But I got to go with Buckeyes 27-24. So that's my official preview and prediction on the college football playoff semifinal matchup between the number 8 seeded Ohio State Buckeyes and the number 5 seeded Texas Longhorns. What's your prediction for this game? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.